Spooky season is upon us! Oh, this is horrible. Spooky season. There are many horrors that plague us day to day. Some of you may be on the lookout for something frightening to start the season off right, while some of you might want to feel gut-wrenching suspense eat away at you. But today, we are going to be looking into something so grotesque it will make even the most hardened horror fans scream when they realize just how bad it really is. Today, we will delve deep into hell, where the shadow demons run rampant, and the spiders chase you down with such vigor that they may just jump through your screen to continue the torment. Take a trip with me. Put yourself in the shoes of our subject, Amraphel, a being on the search for memories and an escape from the... I'm starting to annoy myself. I can't. Why did I turn Australian? Fuck it.
No. We'll do it live! Fuck it!
Agony. If you don't know Agony, it's a little game that came out in 2018, and my lord, is it fucking agony to get through. Both in name and in nature, it is just abysmal dog shit. Absolute piss. Fucking garbage. It is probably the worst and hardest to get through horror game I have ever played in my 23 years on this godforsaken floating rock. When I started this video, I honestly wondered how bad it could possibly be, because I try to go into things with somewhat of an open mind, and a 47 gave me some hope that maybe it wouldn't be complete ass water, but oh boy was I horribly mistaken. I will say I was not expecting 2 separate campaigns and 3 different game modes in totality. I was fully expecting a game that was one main campaign and then you just collect the collectibles and boom shakalaka, you're done. But there are 2 whole campaigns, and by whole campaigns, I mean one where you are doing puzzles, trying not to die, collecting things, and getting genuine cutscenes and somewhat new mechanics throughout the whole thing, and the other one where you just run on all fours like a dog and collect shit. Very little new mechanics, except a key few differences that shall be spoken about when we get there. First, we gotta take a look at the mode I think almost everybody started out with, unless you're some weird fucking goon. The good old original campaign mode. As far as I know, and can tell from what little information we truly get from the game itself, we are Amraphel, a king. King of what? No idea. No fucking clue. I mean, I do know he was the king of Shinar, but nowhere in the game after all this time did I find much to do with him being who he was, until I did some outside research. Now, this doesn't necessarily take away from the end product, not knowing exactly who Amraphel was until I got to the end and decided to take a look for myself, but I would have liked to have some sort of explanation as to why we were put in hell in the first place. But from what I can gather, he must have been an extraordinarily shit person that the queen goddess sexy pretty lady of the underworld forces us to go through this hellish experience over and over again. And it seems as if this time, the one we are playing through is not the first. It's just another part of the endless cycle of committing extra atrocities through the eyes of other demons and downright despicable humans while we try to reach some red lady. Wouldn't that just make our sentence in hell even longer and more painful? I vividly remember her saying to reset the clock and we go through it again. It honestly feels like a ploy to keep us down in hell as long as possible. And since we can fucking hack into people's brains and take over their bodies, it would make sense that she just sends us back to the beginning after putting us through hell. Literally. Reading through the letters left for us all over hell, I can only assume that we are KN, probably being King Nimrod, and left notes on our first time through, when we were maybe a little bit more sane and surprisingly eloquent, that at some point I just started reading these as Thor instead of as a disgraced king, or the disheveled pile of flesh we became by the end. That's where I am to go, down this road. The Lord will lead me to redemption. One thing I didn't quite understand about the story itself is why we are able to control and possess others. I don't think the Bible ever spoke of a man who could control the minds of others. True speculations here, so fucking hear me out. We are just that downright disgusting and dastardly that we became one of the demons that we are taught to fear, like the one in the like the poltergeist. It is really just a ton of empty lore and plot points that are implied but never truly explained, and has a heavy reliance on previous Bible knowledge, which I have about 0. So some of this was lost on me for sure. The ending also was very confusing, but maybe I'm just stupid haha funny brain man. But I'm not totally following how we started taking over larger creatures like the Mega Chort. Running through what feels like a sewer into an active battle zone just to end up fucking bashed. Maybe it wasn't the smartest idea, but it seems to be what we wanted in the end. Perhaps with this big boy and the Tower of Babel fucking laid to waste that the cycle would end, or that now the barrier is broken and we don't need the tower to continue our journey back to Earth or possibly heaven. I'm just so fucking confused. Like, in this depiction of hell, the Tower of Babel is in hell? I was always taught and thought that it was someplace in the Middle East where the humans at the time were trying to reach God, and he just said no. Now, the Succubus playthrough is something. Like I mentioned before, it is really just a collectathon where you run back through some old levels, puzzle solved, and you're a goblin running on all fours. Or you could just walk around normally, making it a complete cakewalk that, like I said, is only really for goons and those who want to collect things. Which, don't get me wrong, I like picking up random statues and putting my life on the line to get them, but there has got to be something more, some morsel of challenge. The big thick boys are still a problem and you have to avoid them, but they're big pushovers anyways, because they don't one-shot like the Onoskelis did to our boy Amraphel, while the Onoskelis can just be seduced into giving us their hearts by force, and it loses any tiny bit of horror that the game had. Like, you just rub their chest or their facial slit thing, and then shove your arm down their throat into their chest cavity. There's nothing to it. It is cool being able to better explore these areas without the fear of having your neck snapped, but there is nothing truly worth the extra playthrough. You get a couple new scenes, with the one that sticks in my head the most where you fucking punt a child with the head the size of George Lopez, then just go on your merry way. Half of the levels don't even need to be explored unless you're going for 100%, because again, the puzzles are solved. The time you take over the Onoskelis for the first time as Amraphel, that entire side of the map is fucking useless. Maybe a few collectibles like the statues, but other than that, nothing. You take a 30-second jog up a winding tower and boom, you're done. There's really not that many new lines. Hell, the lady doesn't even talk to you when you fucking perish. They knew this mode was going to be piss easy, so half of the mirrors don't even work. They just sit there, and once you pass chapter 4, it's just over, leaving essentially nothing. I mean, you can look down and see your own breasts, which is every man's dream. You know, it kind of feels like that meme that's going around because that one dickhead put massive breasts on the lady from Ghosts of Yotai. Except this game was made with goons in mind. Fucking weirdos, man. Oh, then there's Agony mode. Fucking Agony mode. It's meant to be a procedurally generated thing, and maybe it is, and I just got touched by a little bit of shit luck, but I got 2 of the same rooms in an attempt back to back. Let me semanticize you for a second here. If I get the exact same room twice in a row, same enemy killed me in the same spot, how is that procedurally generated? Now, what I'm actually assuming that's happening instead of the game randomly placing things and second by second making decisions, that during this loading screen, it takes a ton of previously constructed rooms and throws them together in ways that they connect to one another, and enemy spawns and power-up spawns are all predetermined. Now, I wasn't expecting a full procedurally generated game mode. That would be fucking incredibly difficult, especially for the small team that they are. Hell, would be a problem for most major teams as well. This is all kind of just in jest. I don't really find a reason to come back to Agony mode all that much. I do like the idea of going back through hell with a couple of extra missions instead of find the end of the area, but it somewhat feels like that's what it comes down to, until you fight a couple bosses. Then they just straight up never truly explain the new mechanic of the statues being power-ups, but at this point it is what it is. They just kind of tend to do things like that. I also feel that for the depiction of hell here, because I truly have no idea on what a biblically accurate hell would be and should be. I know a lot of people have their own idea about what eternal suffering is. To some it's cold, some it's torture, some it's burning. To me, it's being forced to play this game any more than I have to. I will say I think they covered all of these pretty well with a ton of diversity when it came to the areas of hell we do explore. The prison by far I think has to be the most interesting, partially due to it being the first hell we ever get to experience where it's raining bones with people screaming and being strung up on crucifixes. You crawl around tiny caves that are just covered in blood with weird hentai tentacles coming out of the ground. People being forced to sit on thorns for what might be thousands of years, or depending what you believe, eternal torture. Also, I learned this the hard way, that you can just light them on fire and sit there and fucking watch them burn. I did this because I really didn't know what to do at the time, and thought that maybe once he was gone and his ashes were gone, that it would reveal something and I could take his heart to put onto the scale. But I'm just stupid. I honestly feel as if chapter 1 is the best area just due to the high stress, low lighting, and it being quite literally the beginning of the game. That while the game itself isn't scary, I think it builds suspense and intensity that I don't think ever fully comes to fruition, which was honestly my only hope when it came to the game. Chapter 1's atmosphere, and me being new in hell, gave me hope that even if the game wasn't great, whether that was the story or gameplay wise, that it was at least going to be scary and keep me on edge, but that never happened past the first chapter. As soon as we get into chapter 2 and are exploring the Dark Forest and the Tower of the Goddess, it sort of loses all of that, at least in my opinion. The world becomes much more expansive and reliant on movement and swimming, because you're in a much larger space with more water than land. The villain, we are told, is the big bad and is gonna fucking kill you if you're not careful, is already running from us. It sees us. It knows we are there, and yet it runs while we chase it down. It takes away so much from the atmosphere, knowing that not only do we have all this space and can easily slip away from the wannabe skag dickheads, not worrying about getting caught around a corner, and I feel like they somewhat tried to offset the sense of freedom with the mushroom mind. But that as well, even though we're suspended up in the air and walking on relatively small walkways made of something, it's still just a sprint to the finish with no real pressure. There isn't rising lava, the demons don't really pose a threat, so we kind of just coast through easy peasy with a 60 heart rate and a sore thumb. Now, chapter 3, on the other hand, still doesn't have any of the pressure of chapter 1, but I will say it reminds me of home. This is what I meant by they somewhat depict multiple beliefs of what health is, because we are kind of just in Iceland, slipping and sliding around a barren white wasteland covered in ice and freezing cold water that I'm sure can't be too comfortable to swim in, but it's got something. It's new, it's fresh, it's hip, it's cool. God, oh, what am I doing to myself? I'm just not gonna go on about chapter 4 or the ending because, fuck it, it's just the desert, which I'm sure we can all agree is just the tundra of fucking Nevada. It's just more of the same shit, and even more so now than ever do these once horrifying split-faced creatures just become the most unthreatening things in the world. Now again, when we are going through the prison and trying to make our way out, the Onoskelis, or however you pronounce it, it kind of sounds like an old German man parading his pet dinosaur because he pissed on the carpet again. Onoskelis! Anyways, they're genuinely horrifying and do pose some sort of threat because as soon as they get close enough to touch you, they latch onto you, and honestly, I expected them to be cannibalistic because half the time they are. Like, you'll see them holding an arm in their mouth like it's a fucking cigarette while they try to choke down the taste of 1,000-year-old sinner flesh. But half the time they just kill us. Straight up just murder for the funsies. No sustenance is had from our corpses, but instead they snap a neck or tear your heart out of your chest. But as soon as there is any open space, they just turn into things you sprint away from, and after about 10 seconds they kinda give up. There is no conviction in their murder, and completely pulls away from the pure horror I felt after I tried to push one down a hole just for it to catch itself and start running after me. The chorts kind of suffer the same fate, because by the time we meet the chort, it's huge and could kill us even when we take over the form of an Onoskelis, so they're a step higher than we are normally used to running into. But yet again, you just kind of kite them around a table while you solve a puzzle around them. And saying solve is an absolute generous statement, but after I finish talking about the weird shit we see in this game, we will talk about that. It's a whole nother mess. I'm quite sad that the shadow demons never truly pose a threat, because from the letter I'm still assuming we left ourselves throughout hell, they seem to be much larger of a problem than they came out to be. I was genuinely worried about running into said shadows just for them to not really give a fuck about what I'm doing. We could essentially just walk by them, nod our head to acknowledge their existence, and head on our way. They attacked and killed other people in hell with us, but why never us? It was said that they lay in wait and watch patterns and attack at precisely the right time, so if this isn't our first time coming and going, wouldn't it be the perfect moment for them to strike? Or do they not, because the old us recognize this and encourages us to be unpredictable? So they just decide, fuck it, it isn't worth it. He's too big-brained and so buff and so cute, we just can't fucking do it. The flying fire demon is also just fucking goofy looking and poses no true threat. It just sort of hovers around, and I never felt any sort of threat from them. Even less than I felt for the fucking massive, huge masses of blubber known as the ugly goddesses, who actually did just sit in one spot. Granted, spawning out of thin air, but they just sort of swipe at you and pose more of an immediate threat to us and our bones. Anything else is just even more inconsequential, besides maybe the spiders, which are probably the most grotesque things, if they weren't skin sacks. But they move relatively quick, but were yet again built up to be a force to be reckoned with. They move fast, and even though they can't see you, they can still figure out where you are, your address, and the 3 numbers on the back, but none of that is true once we get into any sort of space, or just in general, you look down and see what they're doing, because it's usually just hopping around. They give you plenty of space to do your own thing. Now you're sitting there, watching this, and you think it's gonna get hit by the trap, and it's going to kill it, because that trap would have one-shot us. So it should do something to hurt this fucking walking hand blob. But no, it just got launched directly at me, and it ended my Agony run. Fucking absolute cinema. Throughout the whole video, I've been saying, puzzle this, puzzle that, but that's an incredibly generous conclusion, because 99% of the puzzles are not puzzles where you have to use your noggin. Actually, not a single puzzle takes any semblance of brain cells to complete. And that's sad, considering we don't have the horror or the puzzle aspects of what's supposed to be a horror puzzle game. The first one we ran into is to balance the scales with hearts, which is cool. Rip them out of people's chests and put them on the scale, but that's about it. Plus every quote-unquote puzzle, every bit and piece needed to open the door or tip the scale or whatever you may be doing at the time is in the same goddamn room as you, just sitting on the floor relatively near the door. With the first one probably being the farthest away, with one heart being in the prison, while the other one is right next to the scale, which honestly got me pretty good, because I didn't realize he was just chilling there, and it added like 30 minutes to the runtime of a game that isn't even 5 hours long, including the succubus playthrough. Don't get me started on the sigil puzzles, because yet again, it isn't a puzzle where you find a sigil that overlaps, or you have to find the right sigils to fill up the sigil on the wall as you paint it. No, you just find a single sigil and try them until the right one pops its head out. My original thought process was to either paint what was there, or find something that overlaps. But nope, we don't get to have fun. Maybe it's another thing that I would understand if I knew more about whatever religion this is, and maybe I should have easily known what the sigil for inner peace is, but I don't. It doesn't help, at least on PlayStation, the game looks like absolute shit. I wish I was joking, but when a human, I guess they're a human, I don't really know, but when this thing is more than 10 feet away from you, he just turns into a PlayStation 2 amorphous blob, and that plagues most things, including the shorts, and even up close, they're just muddy. And by muddy, I mean like genuine clay models. But that doesn't even compare to the fire effects, mind you. This is a core mechanic at the beginning of the game. It is so graining that at some point I just started averting my gaze so my brain didn't explode so that I could focus on more penile things. At least from the first moment, we are taught that fire is good, but fire look like shit. Fire burns sticks, but burning sticks hurt my little piss baby eyes. I think atmosphere is a big part of the horror experience, and not necessarily how realistic the blood looks on the ground or how grotesque everything is, but I won't sit here and lie. With the lack of atmosphere here outside of the prison in the first chapter in its totality, the texture problems are at the forefront. Things are muddy, and not muddy as in dirty, but muddy as in just straight up bad. Steep and obvious changes between textures, making it seem as if what I think would be a hell that's one living organism thing, slowly becoming grotesque and connected over time, is just a bunch of shit mashed together hastily. The animations for anything besides seducing people are weird and choppy, especially when taking the bags off heads of other low-life scum. The way we are grabbed by enemies just doesn't make sense at all. Honestly, they put more detail into the fucking cock and ball textures than the rest of it. I've seen people playing on PC, and it looks great. It looks scary. It holds at least a little bit more atmosphere than on PlayStation. But one thing in common for both versions is that they didn't skip on the fucking titty textures. At times it honestly felt as if they put more work into how the cock and balls drooped than how the game itself looked. But there are standout moments when it comes to the design and how things look, but most of that comes from mouth-esque things. Running through teeth as they try to chomp you, and it's honestly, it's horrifying having teeth take a bite out of your ass when it's your first time coming up against an oh no, skellies. But I think the teeth walls is something that was actually quite well modeled and kind of creepy. Maybe I just don't like mouse stuff. But, you know, it is what it is. Fucking dentists scare the shit out of me. Grown-ass man can sit through a teeth cleaning without wanting to cry. Maybe I'm the problem. Hey, this therapy session was nice. Same time next week? Fuck. Fuck no. 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 Fuck. Anyways, I've been quite overcritical so far since my return to doing shit on the internet. But ooh, baby, do I have some stuff cooking. I think they did with Agony as well. It just never came through completely. Like, I'm sure they would have wanted it to. It was a Kickstarter game, so I can't really be omega harsh on it. It's not like a multi-billion-dollar company making garbage. It was a small team. I think if they even had any decent backing from major companies that aren't Xbox, that they would have had the resources and, well, the money to make it work. The bones are there, but the rest isn't. I'm also not easily scared when it comes to horror games, but with that being said, just the lack of genuine terror and also a lack of genuine puzzles sort of killed the game off a rip, alongside fucking tons of issues when it came to the original release in 2018. They were ambitious, but maybe too ambitious. I could see what they're going for. I don't think any game did a hell that felt this hellish since maybe the first time you go to Oblivion in Bethesda's 2005 hit game, Oblivion. Do I honestly think it's worth $20? I'm not one to tell you how to spend your money, but it normally goes on sale for $1, so guess it really depends how much you want to support the devs. Personally, I had more fun making fun of that game than genuinely sitting here and playing it. So I guess I got a decent value out of my, I think it was like $2.15 purchase like last October. With all that being said, I leave you with this.
Satan is watching, guiding her every move, waiting. Your turn. Take one step. You'll be trapped. I know. Tortured. Get alive! You have to run!